Welcome to Doug Shoe Bushcraft. The topic today is survival knives. Survival knives. In other words, a lot of people think of big beefy knife, thick blade. Looks like it could really take some abuse at first glance. It got a nice guard to keep your fingers from going on to the blade. And also the end of the handle screws off. And there's a compass and survival gear inside. And it takes me back to the 1980s and the first Rambo movie, and he had a knife similar to that. The compass right on the end of the handle and some matches inside, and I think he got cut somehow and he sutured himself with needle and thread. Don't try this at home. But is it a good design? Is this something that will help you to survive, or could it possibly be a bad idea? Could you get injured by one of these? Could they fail? Or be the cause that you don't make it back? Well, let's think about it. First of all, this is the knife made by Gordon. It's available at Harbor Freight. $10. Excellent price or something like that. And then this is Whetstone Cutlery. And this one is Survivor. Just the stamp on the blade, the paint on the blade, Survivor model. So let me show you something, and I promise I didn't monkey with this at all. This is just how it arrived at my door. I bought it new over the internet on eBay. So it came and I tested it out a little bit. I wiggled the blade, or tried to. No wiggle in the blade. I use it just a little bit and oh, there's some wiggle in the blade. Why is that? Well, that's why. That's how it came. And the blade is held by an Allen screw. I didn't touch it, I promise. Man, this is an honest review. I didn't bring an Allen wrench with me out into the woods, so I'm not going to really be using that today. I'm just saying that the only thing keeping that blade into the handle is a tiny Allen wrench. Can you see the size of that? It's not very big. And of course, the way this fits in, there's some stability by how it goes into the handle there, but not much. And this one, again, very small Allen screw. But there's some people love these. I'm trying my best not to be insulting or say anything inflammatory, because some people absolutely love these, and somebody harshly criticizes them, and then they're in trouble with that crowd. So I just barely got this. Use it a very little bit. I'm just going over construction methods right now. This one doesn't have the Allen screw. I believe that there's a small stick tang that's been threaded, and then a nut that they put down inside the hollow handle. So a very narrow stick tang, I believe. But look at this. Wondering if you can see that. The blade's bent. If I go from here to the tip, the blade is about a 1/4 inch that way. So the knife from here to here is straight, but it's at an angle from the handle. So I'm not sure. So I sent an email to the company. Actually, it was Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and I don't fault them for sending me a subpar knife, because Smoky Mountain Knife Works, I've done business with them for years and years, decades, I think. Before there was an internet, we just had the paper catalog, and they order things through the mail. But also with this, the compass didn't work. So I sent him an email, tell him about that, and very quickly, just a few days, they shipped me another knife. So I'll show you that one. Comes in a nice box. Wasn't plastic. I took the plastic off. And that one's straight. But I'm wondering if I use it, is it gonna just quickly bend? Not sure. So one of the selling points is, one of the attractions is that you got a compass right inside the handle. And well, we got 4 knives here. I already tested them, so I know the results, but I'll show you. Alright, I'll try my best. Okay, the first compass is from the Harbor Freight knife. Well, actually, the manufacturer is Gordon. Available at Harbor Freight. It's saying that way is north. Kinda. Now it's... Yeah, it's sticking a lot, but it's saying that way. So let me compare that to a good compass. This was a Suunto compass, S-U-U-N-T-O. It's got a jeweled bearing. This way, it's magnetic north. So it was sticking, and I tried to guess when it turned a little bit what north would be, and it gave me a bump steer. Alright, now I'll try to unscrew the compass from the Whetstone cutlery knife without losing the blade and stabbing myself. There I go. Oh, it's turning, it's turning. Kinda. So I'd think this way. There to the good compass. Okay, that one actually got an accurate reading. But I was really unsure of myself. Just trying to get the needle to move. See, these are liquid filled. In my opinion, it'd be better if they were air filled, because a liquid is an oil, I believe, essentially kerosene, and it slows it down. And the colder it gets, it's worse. It's kind of a warm spring day now. Okay, Survivor compass does nothing. Check the second one. I have 2. Okay. Second Survivor compass. Oh, it's turning a little bit. That is so slow. Is it still turning? Now. Oh, it's turning a little bit. It's turning. So somebody would have to know to be patient. Is it still turning? Works a little bit. It did eventually give me kind of a correct reading. So my rating of the compasses, not good. You're depending on that to get you there and get you back. Likely be lost in the woods. And here's another thing that I'd like to mention. But before I do, there's a tick. Lots of ticks in New Hampshire. Well, I actually feel bad for the little guy, but I gotta tear his head off. It's the only way to kill him, I know. Okay, he's no more. Where was I? Oh yes. One more thing to say about the compasses before we move on. They screw into the handle. And you kind of have to put that back in because otherwise your survival kit's going to fly out. Unless you don't keep the survival kit in here, but then what's the point of the knife? If you just have a survival kit on your person, you could just have a normal knife with a solid handle and the survival gear in a pocket. The whole premise is that the survival gear is in here. Well, that means I have to screw the compass on and leave it there. So this looks like a big beefy knife. People are going to be chopping with it, right? Sawing with it, you know, poking holes and whatever. But mostly I'd say the chopping, like chopping a log, or you're batoning. If the blade would even take that without snapping around the handle, I'm not sure. But that vigorous use, that heavy use, well, you're beating up your compass. A compass is a delicate instrument, at least it's meant to be. Here's a good one, my Suunto, and that has a jeweled bearing. So it's a precision instrument. You don't want to be pounding the thing. Imagine the shock, you hit a log every time. Of course it's down here. The compass isn't up here, obviously. But still, that's going to be really bad for the compass. As they come like right out of the box, in my opinion, they're no good. It's going to get you lost out in the woods. You're going to leave and never come back. I mean, I'm laughing, but in reality, if someone did that depending on this and got into trouble or literally never made it back, that's pretty sad. So compass is bad, and in my opinion, as you use the knife as like a survival knife, a work knife, you know, building shelters, cutting and splitting wood, I mean, sawing. The compass is, in my opinion, just going to get worse and worse. Okay, so blade, I'm afraid they're going to fall out. Compass, no good. Let's look at the survival kit. Alrighty, let's see what's in the little survival kit. Comes in a plastic baggie. Thin plastic, but it doesn't look like there's any holes in it. It's got a Ziploc, so that should be waterproof. Got a little piece of birch bark here, try not to get things wet. And I do have some thread and a needle. Looks like one needle. Buttons, but those buttons are tiny. Much smaller than like a military uniform or outdoor clothing. At least the clothing that I have. Wouldn't do me much good because it's too small for the buttonhole. And the tiniest little safety pin in the world. Okay, but it's something. Then what we got? Fishing line and little hook. One hook. I mean, you could catch a fish, but you lose that, you're bumming. Little piece of paper to strike the matches on, striking paper. How many matches we got? Ooh. 6 matches. And they're not strike anywhere matches. So if I lose my tiny little piece of striking paper, I got nothing. So, it's a little windy today. Not going to start a whole fire. I'll just see if the match strikes. A tiny piece. Oh. Well, it lit. I could have been more careful with the wind, I suppose. I'll sit on the other side of the stump, maybe. Alright, I'm trying to hold this in the camera frame and everything. Ooh, this one isn't igniting. That's acting like it got damp. Alright. I don't know what happened. Now there seems to be a smear on the striking paper. Oh. Yeah, those flare up and go out. I could hunker somewhere away from the wind, try to get an actual fire going, but I think even now you see some of the challenges that you might have if you just have 3 matches. And I'm a flint and steel guy, but if I have a nice thick piece of steel and a sharp hard rock like quartz or chert or something, I can throw sparks all day and all night and the next day. Right? And with this I got 6 tries and then I don't know, I'm done. So that wouldn't be my choice of a survival kit. Okay, so the premise is that you have a nice survival kit inside the handle. In case you need it. But the thing is, the gear isn't any good. Or not much good. I won't say any good. Could just have a nice survival lighter. Waterproof. Jet flame comes out. Right? Put that in the pocket. How much advantage is it really to have the hollow handle? However, I will say there's a lot more room in there. You could even take this out, toss it, not in the woods, but toss it in the trash at home or a drawer, whatever you want to do, and then put your own survival gear in there. Now that's a possibility, but still, how much gear do you fit in there? And a lot of people think these handles are waterproof. They're not. Not right out of the blister pack. Looks like it is because you got an O-ring there. But it's not, and I can tell because when I had the cap off and I was looking through it like that, I could see light coming in. So the water is just going to pour in this. If you drop it in the river, or let's say you're kayaking, canoeing, you fall in the drink, swim to shore, or climb back in your boat, whatever. If you get fully immersed, water's going to get in here. If this is hanging on your belt and it rains, I mean, this is more than splash proof, and the holes are on the bottom, so it's kind of like a drainage hole. So it's water resistant as is, but if you want it to be waterproof, you got to take this apart and somehow seal it up. You know, and in my opinion, this needs work because there's a play in the blade. I don't feel play this way. I feel play side to side, not up to down yet. But I've hardly used this. So if there's play with shock, that amount of movement is going to make the amount of pressure that's put on the handle, the attachment points, much, much greater. Could be 10, 20 times greater because of the movement. In fact, just doing this, I can feel more and more play. So if I carried this at all, I would give some attention, try to put liquid steel or something in there. But is it worth it to me? That's the question, because they do make full tang knives, and they do make knives that have a more rugged handle. But let's look at another feature. Let's look at the saw. How much of an advantage is that saw on there? This is a completely dead and down fir tree, I believe. Looks like it's been dead for quite a long time. Should be dried out. It does saw wood. Smells like a Christmas tree. So I tried to saw it all the way through, not break it at all, but just it broke under its own weight when I was almost there. So this is old, but it does have structure to it. Actually sawed through like 3 fingers worth of softwood or thereabout. So saw does work. I'm surprised. It works better than expected. Maybe I should test it out in the river in case anyone doesn't believe me about it not being waterproof. Don't you hate it when you accidentally drop your knife in the brook? It does happen. I think more often I've fallen in water. I've completely immersed myself over these many years, spending time in the woods. And then would be swimming, right? So that would make, I'd put some pressure on the water, possibly going into the handle. But that's a pretty good test, I think. Okay, land would get wet. Well, see what we can do. Dry it off quickly. I just don't want to introduce water to it when I unscrew my cap, right? Let's see. Any water in there? Yeah, there is. That's dripping wet. I put my old survival kit in a pocket rather than the handle. Dry it out. But in my little test, one of those matches was already really pasty, right? It seemed to be like maybe water had got into it. So there you go. It's just proof, in case you didn't believe me, in case you didn't believe the shoe, that there's daylight going in there, so water can too, right? So it's not a waterproof container. Okay, this is what any kid, big or small, it's got to do. You get the survival knife. Of course, you got to throw it at the dead tree. I mean, that tree is completely dead, we can tell that, right? But it's reminding me of an enemy soldier in one of those World War II reruns I used to watch as a kid. Only had like 3 black and white channels. That's how we rolled. Wish me luck. Ooh! Try it again. So I was throwing the knife at the tree, which in my mind is abuse of the knife, so not the knife's fault that it has play now. But that is something that somebody's gonna do, and in my mind, you can correct me if you don't think this is true, but in my mind, throwing the knife a couple times was simulating like rough use in the woods in general. Just kind of sped it up a little bit maybe, because now we got a lot of play. I'm not done with the test. Now I'd like to try some chopping, because maybe somebody tries to saw and it's difficult and they give up, decide to chop instead. It's all the same softwood log. See what we can do. In my opinion, it chops a lot better than it saws. Batoning, that's what a lot of people want to see. I gotta be careful though. I don't want to hurt myself. Alright, cut this piece of wood. Saw me do that. There's a baton. Excellent. Here's my issue. Can you hear that? Okay. Really loose now. This is steel. Seems to be a halfway decent steel. This is aluminum. Not strong at all. I mean, I can break almost anything on purpose, but just by accident, because of that play, the play is going to be putting more stress on the aluminum where it attaches to the handle, and that could just snap right off, in my opinion. And I don't want to be using it really hard to chop when the blade flies off, because I could hurt myself or someone else. I mean, a flying blade that's sharp, you do the math, that could even be the way somebody goes to glory, and I don't want it to be because of my survival knife. So, and this is just my opinion. Like I said, there's other people who love these. They've modified them, and they say the way they've modified them, they believe they're good. So they can do that. I mean, I'm just saying, as a beginner, there's a lot of people starting out and they go, oh, I saw that one just like that in a Rambo movie. Isn't that great for survival? In my opinion, no. So what are some alternatives? So here's, I'd call this a real survival knife, because this is Vietnam era according to the date stamp on the blade. I don't know if it was actually in the war, and maybe it was sacrilege to a relic, but I changed the grind from here all the way down, so I could just be sharper, but you can sharpen them as you would. I even put a real double edge on the clip point, and it comes with the saw. That's a functional saw, but it's meant to saw the metal of a plane. If it was a plane crash or a helicopter crash, the blade was so rugged, and even more so before I changed the blade grind, so that they could poke through the skin of the aircraft and saw the way out. We'll work on wood, but not as well. You might notice the sheath even has a pouch on it. There's sharpening stone in there. It's made by Ontario. But look, you could even take that stone out and put in survival supplies, right? That doesn't have to be in the handle. And this is a stick tang, but that's a thick stick tang. I don't think you're ever going to break it. I mean, like I said, this is war era. Okay, another one. It's called the Glock field knife. I think it's actually a bayonet. Might have bought it from Cheaper Than Dirt years and years ago. I'm not sure. But there's a plug which doesn't come out easily. It's not meant to come out, but I took it out. And there's a little bit of space in there. You could put a tiny amount of gear in there. Or I was thinking maybe hollowing it out more. And there's a stick tang that goes into the polymer that's molded around it. However, if you break one of these, you should win a prize, because those are just so tough. You're not going to break it by accident, in my opinion. And it has a really good saw. Well, some models are plain back, some have a saw. But saws, you know, fair. I mean, for a knife, it's not a dedicated saw. And those sell. You can still get them online. They're like 30 bucks, somewhere in that range. They're not bad at all. You got like a sharpened pry bar type blade. You know, not all that great for cutting. I mean, not too bad. But there you go. And that, in my opinion, is never going to break on you. And then, don't have a lot of experience with these. Walmart, like $12. They're a machete, Ozark Trail, bargain brand. Has saw. But I've tried it a little bit, just yard work. I mean, you know, well, you got to do it. Make our yards and surrounding woods look a little bit better. And not too bad, but 12 bucks. And comes with a sheath with some pockets. And this ferro rod that also has a rod of magnesium you can scrape off for tinder. I don't know how that's not supposed to fall off on the trail. I'd have to tie it. Then you have a pocket. This goes all the way through too. See? I don't know what they were thinking. Put some bullets in there. Shells, I don't know. But it even got a little bit of a survival kit. So here was my thought. You had like a rugged machete, halfway rugged machete. Could make your own sheath and put a pocket on there. Could fit easily, a pocket big enough for an Altoid stand. A lot of people like the Altoid survival kit. And stock it yourself and put a compass in there. And then your compass isn't getting beat up every time you chop, right? This is meant to be a machete, not a carving knife, but still. I'm saying it's cutting as well as the actual survival knives, or the ones marketed as survival knives. I mean, I could sharpen it better, but not right now. I'm back to the same dead fir tree. Let's see how well I can chop with a little machete. So a lot better chopping. Let's see how it saws. It's not bad. In my opinion, a little bit better than the Gordon survival knife saw. But really where it shines is the chopping. Just good to have a saw, because I've had times where I build a shelter. If I notice this branch or this root right in the way, I don't have enough room to swing to cut it. Or particularly if you're digging and you come to a root and in the hole there's just not enough room to chop, or not very much, then you have a saw. A lot of people even call them a root saw. I believe on the Glock field knife it's marketed as a root saw, if I remember right. So you can saw as well. And sometimes you're making something and you don't want to chop to like pointy end, you want a flat end that's sawed off. Then you got the saw. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have it there. Okay, so what are some options instead of the Gordon survival knife? Well, I like full tang. Here we have an old Hickory fish and small game knife, or it's their version of the Kephart. And here's a Dexter Russell hunting knife. And you can see with both these designs, the blade goes all the way through, and then these wooden slabs are riveted on either side, so you're not going to get that play between your blade and your handle. Just one solid piece of metal. So that's a good design, in my opinion. I would recommend full tang. Also, they got a narrow blade, and with that kind of grind on them, cut very, very well, better than this as far as cutting. Of course, chopping, this chops much, much better, and it's got a saw in case you want that. But if you want a knife to cut, it's one of these, or the Mora. It's one version of a little Mora, and it's a stick tang, but these are very strong. I'd also recommend that. Even though it's not full tang, it's good enough. Let's see how they cut. See, nothing cuts like a Mora. You take off little tiny feathers, you can take off big chunks. Compare that to the Gordon. I mean, it cuts, not as smoothly. You have to use more pressure. If I want to get the little feathers, it's not as precise, not as good for that. The Dexter Russell, it's the same way, just cuts very, very well. The old Hickory fish and small game knife, again, that's just smooth, easy. I mean, if there's some sort of situation where I'm trying to survive, I want to make it easier on myself, not hard, right? I want a knife that smoothly cuts through. If it's catching, then you can slip and there's injury. I don't want that. But these don't have a saw, so then what do? Well, here's an inexpensive Fiskars saw. And I know it's cool, the idea having the saw just on the back of your blade. If I had a small blade like this with a saw on it, it's not going to be much of an advantage really. Whereas the Fiskars, I mean, that's a dedicated functional saw. But what about weight? Oh no. Well, any of these in the sheath with the saw is the same or even less weight. The Mora would be a little bit less weight, and you have a full dedicated saw. So the advantage of the survival knife, because you have an inaccurate or non-functioning compass and a couple matches getting wet. Well, I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'd say the disadvantages of that, for me, outweigh the advantages, so that's why I wouldn't want it. Thanks for joining me. It was really nice spending time with you today. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments. Also, if you have any questions, please ask, or if there's anything you'd like to see, please let me know. And if you're not subscribed, please do that. Doesn't cost anything. Makes me happy. I mean, I'm out here working hard for you guys, trying to bring you videos that you enjoy. So if you could do that for me, really appreciate it. And God bless you. Now may the Lord of peace himself give you his peace at all times and in every situation. The Lord be with you all. 2 Thessalonians 3:16 NLT.